All right, good evening, everyone. Today is Monday, April 19, 2021. It's 7 p.m. So I will call to order the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission meeting and record the attendance of all members present. Also like to welcome our new member, Wendy Korstenage. Not sure if I pronounced that correctly, but hopefully I got it pretty close. And with that, we will move on to Article 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, I would move on to Article 3 to approve the current agenda.
So moved.
Support.
I believe we had a motion by member Nordijk and support by, was it member Katzma?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Agenda stands. Okay. And then we will move on to Article 4 to approve the minutes of the March 1st, 2021 meeting.
That was,
Anybody have any discussion on that?
I would make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, member Katzma. Do we have support?
Support.
I believe we had support by, I'm going to say member Deering beat you on that one, member Johnson. So we'll go with that one. All those in favor of approving the minutes of March 1st, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. And then we will move on to Article 5. At this time, we acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak to non-agenda items. So if you're here on a topic that is on tonight's agenda, we have 4 of them. 2 of them are slated for public hearing, and then 2 are not. But I'll try to remember to ask if there's any comments. We typically do that in the Zoom format. So if you're here about an agenda item, we'll wait till we get to that item to speak, but if you have something else, you can raise your hand electronically or press *9 to be connected.
There are no raised hands.
Super, then we'll move right on to Article 6, which is a public hearing for Randy Burry Builder for 4670 Quiggle. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to construct an accessory building. And I'm assuming Brian is going to handle this one.
Yeah, I'll be handling all those ones tonight. So we'll jump into the first one here. So you have the applicant requesting a type 1 special use permit to allow for an accessory building that is over 832 square feet. The property is located on Quiggle Avenue, south of Cascade and north of I-96. The building is going to be 36 by 48 feet for a total of about 1,728 square feet, and has a height of 14 feet tall as measured to the midpoint of the roof, as you see there in the drawing. Excuse me. This height requires a setback of 10 feet to the side yard and 25 feet to the rear yard, and they're showing there a setback of 12 feet to the side, and it's well over 100 feet back to the rear property line, a few hundred feet. And then the building will also have to be at least 10 feet from the house there. The property is between 3 to 6 acres, so they are allowed to have up to 2 accessory buildings, and this will be the first building on the property. The applicant indicated that they plan to use the building for storage of recreational equipment, and they'd say that the building is normal in size and appearance for the area. So the applicant appears to meet our standards for an accessory building, so I'm recommending approval of the special use permit with the 2 conditions listed in the staff report: that the building is not used for a living space or to run a business, and that any outdoor lighting meets our regulations.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of staff? All right, with no questions of staff. Does the applicant wish to add anything? If so, they could raise their hand at this time. If they don't have anything to add, it's not necessary that they speak. I just want to give them the opportunity.
The applicant is in attendance, but there is no raised hand.
Okay, then we will move on. Any discussion, or should we take a motion to go to public hearing at this time?
Make a motion that we go to public hearing for case number 213625.
Thank you, Member Nordike. Do we have support?
Member Johnson supports.
Thank you, Member Johnson. All those in favor of going to public hearing, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we are now in public hearing. If anybody wishes to speak specifically on this matter for 4670 Quiggle Avenue Southeast, now would be your time to raise your hand electronically or press *9 if you're on a phone. And Brian, did we have any letters or any late communication on this one to your office?
I did not receive anything, no.
Thank you.
There are no raised hands.
Excellent. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing for case number 213625.
Thank you, Member Nordike. Support.
Member Johnson supports again.
Thank you, Member Johnson. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Does anybody have any discussion or wish to take any action on this item?
I'll make a motion that we approve case number 213625 with staff recommendations.
Thank you, Member Nordike.
Member Johnson supports.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Been moved to approve with the staff conditions. No discussion. Hearing none, I would say all those in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. We'll move on to Article 7, case number 213631. Looks like Corey and Carla Bigger. And this one's at 4983 Clear Ridge Drive, a little further south. Kind of the same thing. What do we have, Brian?
You're right, it is pretty similar to the first one there, same type 1 special use permit for the accessory building over 832 square feet. This one's on Clear Ridge Drive, west of Snow Avenue and south of I-96. This building's gonna be 30 feet by 40 feet, so a total of 1,200 square feet. And it has a height of 14 feet, 10 inches tall, measured to the midpoint, so that requires a 40-foot setback to both the rear and side property lines. And as you can see on the site plan there, they're showing 45 feet to the rear and 49 feet to the closest side property. And then once again, it has to be at least 10 feet from the house. This property is under 3 acres, so they're allowed to have 1 accessory building, and this will be the first building then on the property. The applicant indicated that they plan to use the building for storage of household items and lawn equipment. And then it would say that the building is once again normal in size and appearance for the area. The applicant appears to meet our standards once again for an accessory building, so recommending approval of the special use permit with the same 2 conditions: that the building is not used for living space or to run a business, and that any outdoor lighting meets our regulations.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions of staff? Hearing none, would the applicant like to add anything at this time? If so, you can raise your hand electronically. If you don't have anything to add, it's not necessary.
The applicant is in attendance, but there is not a raised hand.
Excellent. Okay, good to know. Anybody in the planning commission wish to make a motion to go to public hearing on this, or is there some discussion you'd like to have prior?
I'll make a motion, Chairman Rissy, that we go to public hearing for case number 213631.
Thank you, Member Nordike. Do we have support?
Support. Member Rappin supports.
I think somebody beat you, but I wasn't sure who it was, so we're gonna go with Member Rappin. And with that, we will, let's see, that's the problem with having the site plan on the screen. I can't see people's lips. Take a vote to go to public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in public hearing. At this time, if somebody wishes to speak regarding this case on Clear Ridge Drive, raise your hand electronically or press *9 if you're on a touch tone phone, and we'll get you connected. Brian, I'm assuming you had no other communication that we need to be aware of?
That's correct. We didn't get anything for this one.
All right.
There are no raised hands.
Boy, it's a pretty uneventful meeting so far. Sometimes that's a good thing. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Thank you, Member Nordike. Do we have support?
Member Rappin supports.
Thank you, Member Rappin. I was starting to worry there for a second. It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Okay, back in regular session then. Do we have any discussion on this matter?
I'd make a motion to approve case number 213631 with staff recommendations.
Thank you, Member Nordike. Do we have support?
Support.
Thank you, Member Deering, for the support. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
With staff conditions? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We will move on to Article 8, which is case 213629 for Bob Morse. And this is basic plan review for amendment to the PUD to accommodate a new car wash.
Yep, so get away from accessory buildings here, and we're, this is the basic plan review for a PUD amendment. So this is the first stage here, kind of an introduction to the plan. The applicant is requesting a basic plan review to amend the existing PUD to allow for the construction of a new car wash. They're also proposing a new drive-through coffee shop on the same parcel. The property is located on the south side of 28th Street, just west of Thornhills. Right now, it currently includes two parcels that the applicant are proposing to combine, as well as an abandoned right-of-way in between those two parcels. There's currently an abandoned Pizza Hut on the western parcel that is in the zone PUD 80, and there's a motel on the eastern parcel that is zoned B2. So the applicant is requesting that the PUD be amended to include this new combined parcel and car wash. PUD 80 currently includes an existing Culver's and Macatawa Bank there to the west of the car wash, and as well as a 61-unit apartment complex behind those businesses. So the applicant's proposing an approximately 5,200 or so square foot building to house a Tommy's car wash. Currently, they're also showing or proposing a 600 square foot drive-through coffee shop on the same parcel. I've communicated to the applicant that I believe the coffee shop should be removed from the site plan since our zoning ordinance only permits one primary building or use per parcel. They elected to keep that on for their submittal. So the car wash, we'd consider that to be the primary use and building on the parcel. So the coffee shop would be adding a second primary use then, which our zoning ordinance does not permit two of those on one parcel. So that would have to be removed from the site plan. The applicant still has to submit a full civil plan set, so that would include utility and stormwater information. Those plans will need to be submitted and reviewed by our township engineers to ensure that they meet our stormwater agreement or requirements. And then we do that before we can proceed to the preliminary plan review and public hearing. Landscape plan will need to be submitted as well. Currently, they're showing no buffer yard there on the eastern property line. We'd prefer to see at least a small buffer yard, kind of similar to what we have seen there between the Culvers and the Macatawa Bank. A photometric site plan was submitted last week. It did include illumination levels above what we allow, so I've asked them to revise that then. The applicant is proposing to remove one curb cut along 28th Street. There's currently one from the Pizza Hut lot and one from the motel lot. So they would remove the Pizza Hut one and then realign the other curb with another curb cut that's across 28th Street, as you can see on the plan there. The PUD ordinance as currently written prohibits that Pizza Hut parcel from having direct access to 28th Street once it's redeveloped. But since that curb cut is being removed and then the curb cut from the motel parcel is being added, and it's kind of being cleaned up by being aligned with that other one across the street, it would seem to be kind of a fair trade-off then to have that one remain on the site. The applicant will need to show documentation from the Kent County Road Commission approving that proposed curb cut along 28th Street. So there's currently an existing driveway that accesses that parcel to the southeast there. The applicant is proposing that to be now be a one-way drive. Staff would recommend that that be a two-way drive still to promote better cross access between properties. And we always try to do that where possible to have easier access. It's one of the goals that we have there. And then the applicant still needs to complete the process to vacate the abandoned right-of-way between the two parcels. This is a key piece of the application because if the process is denied, that would change the whole site plan there and wouldn't be allow them to do kind of what they're showing here. In order to vacate a right-of-way, the applicant will need to receive an approval from the local governing body, which is the Township Board, as well as an approval from the Road Commission before the rest of the legal process can play out for that. So we would need to see those two approvals from the Township Board and the Road Commission before we can proceed to the preliminary plan review of the application. In my staff report, you'll see that I provide a few other recommendations for information that the applicant should submit before we can proceed to a public hearing. So the point of this meeting is to really have an introduction phase to the project. If there are any questions or requests of the applicant, this would be a good time to address those. The next phase will be the public hearing for the preliminary development plan review, which will be scheduled once the applicant provides the documents and information mentioned in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So at this point, we're not necessarily making a official motion here to approve the site plan yet. We're just reviewing it. Is that my understanding?
Correct, yeah, reviewing and providing feedback and a good time to
Okay.
ask questions from the applicant as well.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for staff at this time?
Chairman Rissy, Member Nordike does.
Okay,
Brian, I know that you're proposing that they remove the coffee shop or the drive-through. They are combining two parcels. Is there anything that would preclude us from, approving a plan that does have both? I understand that's not your desire, but is there anything that would preclude us from doing that?
We have a section in our ordinance there that states there can only be one principal use or building per parcel. And with a car wash and a coffee shop are two very different uses. We consider both of those to be principal uses. That goes against that section that we have in there. And it's just something that we don't really see.
What would be required to do that? I hear what you're saying, but I'm also of the mind that they're combining two parcels. And yes, they are different use cases, but for the area, it's not that far from the what the area supports.
I was thinking exactly along the same lines, Member Nordike, and I guess my big question is, why can't they make the coffee shop on its own parcel to accommodate their end goal of having two businesses there? Why does it have to be all developed as one parcel, or can the PUD still have two separate parcels?
It could, and they looked at that originally. I think they couldn't fit the car wash in there how they wanted to on just one parcel. So, I mean, combining two parcels, it's allowing them to have a larger car wash, which they were looking to do. But per our zoning ordinance, it would then, prohibit having two different uses, two different primary buildings on the parcel.
So would they go to the ZBA, or what would be the process if they wanted to push that? I mean, again, as a planning commissioner, I have no issue with both. That's just my perspective. I get the building envelope issue, but
Sure.
In studying this, what I saw is that the 5 vacuums, if you will, on the west side of the proposed coffee shop would really be where the sticking point is. If you were to draw a parcel line, if you would, right through the, if there was a lot line right through that island, that vacuum island there, it seems to me that that's probably where the biggest hurdle would be. Am I wrong, Brian? Is there another spot that they would get caught up in, or is that pretty much the primary concern?
There's a few spots. They're getting a buffer yard and setbacks that need to be met, right? Those vacuums probably couldn't be there. There wouldn't be enough parking for our parking requirements for either one is shown now. And then one other factor, our B2 zoning, which is the underlying zoning, requires a 3-acre minimum parcel. And so this one's only just above 2 acres too. So, I mean, if they were bringing in a whole new 3-acre parcel too, that's something that would make it easier. But right now, this is, below that 2 itself. So putting 2 primary buildings on there is getting things a little tight. But yeah, parking, vacuums, buffer yards.
as it currently sits right now as two separate parcels,
Mhm.
is it feasible that somebody could build a coffee shop on one and a car wash on the other if they were able to fit within the boundaries and not change the size of the parcels?
Yeah, if they can be able to fit it on there,
Okay.
that wouldn't be an issue. If they kind of meet all the requirements.
And if the proposed coffee shop was its own parcel, the parking would, I mean, it wouldn't change the parking, right? Because you could have the same, couldn't you have the same design with cross flow between the sites through a mutual agreement of some sort, or would that not?
Right now, I think they have just kind of one more parking spot than we require for a car wash, and then adding the coffee shop would, they don't have enough parking shown for both right now to meet our
Understood.
requirements, so there'd be more needed to be added.
Okay,
I also think that they would have only one driveway cut if they separated those parcels for that coffee shop off the back. They couldn't have it off 28th Street as well.
Yeah, the car wash, right, wouldn't be able to have kind of this direct access 28th Street. That might have to be changed a little bit.
well, you don't think they could get they could have an easement for to be able to cross between the two parcels? I mean, we have shared connections like that. Heck, there's a shared connection shown on the west side.
Yeah.
Just to, you know,
Yep, they could have, cross access. Yeah, the car wash, I guess, wouldn't have a direct curb cut, but it could be something similar to this. If it'd have to be a few things would have to change, but yeah, there can be cross access between the two.
right.
Yeah,
They'd probably have to give up the 5 vacuums and maybe that would make up the loss of parking, but
Yeah,
That might be-
vacuums require a 50-foot setback, so those 5 most likely would be, have to be taken out then.
does anybody else have any other questions of staff before I ask my next one?
I just have a comment that I think this is really jammed in there pretty tight, and I can see it becoming a problem with cars coming out of the car wash and cars being in line for the coffee shop. I think we're gonna start bumping cars in there. It's just too tight for both of them.
Okay.
Ryan, I had a similar question as it relates to the curb cut and traffic flow. Did I understand correctly that technically this PUD is not allowed a curb cut on the 28th Street, but we are allowing one because they're reducing from 2 to 1?
Yeah, so the Pizza Hut property itself, which is the side where the car wash is, isn't permitted its own curb cut. There's kind of that, you see that access drive on the west side, so that's where they would get their access from. But since they're adding kind of this motel parcel, which has its own curb cut, we kind of consider that to be allowed, especially since they're kind of cleaning it up and realigning it one across. But the Pizza Hut parcel itself, as written, can't have direct access.
But the motel can, as it stands today.
Yep, it has it as it stands today, and then it's something that we could amend in the PUD to allow this one as it is there, since it is kind of adding an additional curb cut.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions of staff?
I'd just like to comment that I think it's just too tight. It's trying to do too much in this parcel. And I agree with Timmy. I think it's way too dense.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Member Maxley. Anyone else?
Just
Well, then I'm
have
going to ask my.
I'm sorry, I have one
No,
question.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I know the lighting had been addressed, but I was just wondering about the noise level from this. I know somewhere back behind there is, I think, some apartments. And I was just wondering if the noise level had been addressed at all.
I haven't heard too much from the applicants about kind of noise levels or something. That's something we can ask them. There will, of course, be some landscaping needed on the south property line, so that might help as well, but they might be able to speak a little bit more. Noise is usually in our general ordinances, so I might have to look into that, not in our zoning, so I might just have to look into that a little bit more too.
Brian, is the zoning for vacuums the same in other parts of in the village, I guess? Because I'm thinking of the other 2 car washes in the township, and their vacuums are not 50 feet from the lot line at either car wash. And so I'm curious, is that something new that happened recently, or? what's your, I
Sure.
don't know if you know the history on that or not.
It looks like, so there's a specific section in chapter 17, which is our special uses section in the zoning ordinance for auto repair shops and garages and car washes. And that's where that 50-foot buffer is required. And there's a note there, the subsection amended by ordinance number 6 in 1993. That's the closest hint that I have of when that might have changed. I don't know if those other car washes were around before that or not, but that's
Okay.
my extent of the knowledge on it, at least.
Well, I think former Chairman Spurla would know exactly when the one car wash was built. But I don't know. I think the other car wash was remodeled since '93 and added vacuums, and they're closer than that, I think. But I'm just thinking about this. I'm thinking that I guess that kind of helps me with the requested deviation number 3, I guess, in my mind. But okay. Anyone else have any other questions of staff? Okay, I think I at this time would allow the applicant to speak on this if they have if they would like to add anything. I'm sure we might have some questions here that they could answer, or at least they probably already know what those questions are from our discussion. So if they could connect, that would be great.
We do have one raised hand. I'm not 100% certain it is the applicant, but his hand has been raised for a while.
Oh, give him a shot.
Okay. Mr. Morgan?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Can.
Okay, sorry, I was muted there. Just a couple of quick comments. I think Brian covered the plan quite well. I will mention that there's actually 4 of us here, so if you have any specific questions, Bob Morse is online as well, Doug Stolzenberg from XL Engineering, our civil engineer, and then Nicole Howell from the Tommy Car Wash. She's the project manager. So if you have any specific questions, we have our full team available. There was quite a bit of conversation about the coffee shop and how it could possibly fit into this plan. We would be willing to draw a property line so that each building, each use would be on its own parcel. But exactly what you determined, we have some side yard setbacks issues with the vacuums. I will say though, I looked up, maybe I shouldn't have, but I looked up in Cascade Township, and I actually found 4 PUDs, commercial PUDs that had multiple buildings. I don't know how they were approved. There might have been special circumstances, but there were 4 commercial PUDs with multiple buildings. I also found 4 additional PUDs where buildings, they each had their own parcel, but some of them had 0 lot line. So obviously there were some not variances necessarily, but there was some relief on side yard setbacks. So something just to look into. We are interested in having the coffee shop. We think the circulation actually works quite well. There's, you know, a number of one ways, and with proper signage, I think it all makes really good sense. We are actively putting together a complete preliminary plan package for Brian's review. We've already submitted architecture. We've submitted lighting, which we are now amending. The landscape plan is almost ready. The civil engineering package is well underway. We should have it done by the middle of the week. So we're anxious to get going on this. The architectural plans are pretty much completed. So we just ask that you take, you know, a close look at it, and any other comments that you have tonight we'll take into account and amend the plans accordingly. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Does anybody have any any questions they'd like to ask the applicant or his team?
Member Katzma has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Member Katzma.
There looks on the south side, there's that one way that was talked about. I was wondering if the applicant could speak to why they chose to do a one-way versus maybe doing the two-way.
Sure, good. That's a really good question. We actually met with one of the owners of the development to the south, and this was actually his preference. He's concerned that if it's two-way, too much traffic will enter into his development and use it as a shortcut over to Thorn Hills. So he felt like if it was a one-way just going north, like we're showing, it would at least reduce the amount of extra flow through his development. We don't really have a preference other than we like to be a good neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a follow-up to that, Mr. Chair? So
Yes,
from,
absolutely.
Similarly, from that south corner, the one-way parking appears to go directly against the flow of another one-way that would be a southbound lot or lane on that. So can you talk through what that traffic flow proposed would be?
Yeah,
Well,
because as it looks right now, you'd have to buy coffee in order to get out of
Right.
the parking lot. It's actually a brilliant marketing plan.
Actually, you mean as far as going north?
Correct.
There's two-way traffic adjacent to, I don't know if you're familiar with the Electric Cheetah right there where it says existing commercial building. There is
Oh,
a
I do see
north-south flow there that you can get out without buying coffee.
Okay, I see
And
that
that-
now. Thank you.
Yeah, the southbound is important because he has parking back there. And we were, providing a way of getting in and out that way. So no, we're not trapping people to buy coffee.
Okay, all right. Okay, is there or will there be a cross flow agreement between the Electric Cheetah building and your parcel? I think at one time there was a fence there, if I'm not mistaken. I
Yes.
don't know if there's
It was,
still is.
I understand it was just taken down. That's a really good question. I do not have an answer.
Okay.
Bob Morris has had conversation with the Electric Cheetah. They do have their own curb cut, so the need to connect isn't really there. So I don't know the answer to the question.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Morgan?
Chairman Rissy, Bob Morse does have his hand up.
Great, let's bring him aboard.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Bob Morse. Appreciate your time. Appreciate Brian's time. Couple quick things. Yes, I talked to Corey DeMint from the Electric Cheetah. He's ecstatic that we're moving in potentially to this space and cleaning up the two buildings there. And we definitely will work with them with a cross-traffic agreement. And then I wanted to address too, I know we talked about the size and the traffic flow. We have 2.1 acres with this site and a lot of ingress egress options. And if you look at the size of that coffee shop and the drive-through, a lot of these Tommies we can fit on 1 acre. And we're set up to process cars quickly, get them in and out quickly. And so when we look at this flow, and we worked with the Tommy's engineers and then added the coffee shop, we feel like this is going to be laid out very, very well to the point where we shouldn't have issues with the cars coming in, going out as one might think. So I just wanted to throw that out. We have, if there's any questions regarding that, we have Nicole from Tommy's, I'm sure, that could also shed some more light on that. But I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
All right, thank you, Member Morse, or Mr. Morse. Any members of the Planning Commission have any questions for for Mr. Morris. Or anyone else, I guess, as part of his team.
Chairman, I have another question.
Yes, Member Katzma.
The coffee shop, the proposed coffee shop, I'm assuming this is just a 100% drive-through type setup, no seating?
Yes, that is correct. It's a coffee shop called Scooters. They're planning on bringing 10 locations to the Grand Rapids market, and they are drive-through only. And the nice thing, if you look at that gymnastic center, dance studio property to the south, a lot of those parents drop off their kids. They need to kill an hour. We can see them going up, grabbing a cup of coffee, running over to the car wash, and they're getting their cars washed, and we have free vacuums. So gives them an option while they're waiting for their kids. And that was one of the reasons too. I talked to Fred Rebo, one of the owners, as Jim was mentioning, of that gymnastics center property. And he has so many kids that are being dropped off and picked up. He was just concerned about the traffic coming through his parking lot. And that's why he requested that we make that a one-way there, just so we don't have a lot of people using that exit into his property because of all the kids that he has. So that was kind of his thinking behind that as well. I just wanted to shed a little more light on that.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Yes, Member Nordhook.
And the discharge part of your car wash to the front of the vacuums, the 5 vacuums, you have 38 feet. We put cars in there horizontal with their doors open, vacuuming. That really brings us down to about 1 car length from your curb cuts to the open door of somebody vacuuming. That's pretty tight to me. I've seen things happen in that type of space. Plus, they've got to make a decision to go right or left out of there. While people are in line trying to get in the car wash, while people are in line trying to get into the coffee shop. Is it that tight at any of your other locations?
You know, I'll jump in, and I'm sure Nicole might be able to help too. When you pull into those 5 vacuums, you're driving straight east into the vacuum, and then behind you would be the exit. And we find a lot of people will exit the wash, and then they will go south back behind the building to the vacuums. What we've done at other locations, we'll literally go out and we'll put cones up to prevent them. If we see we're starting to get backed up, or if we spot any traffic issues, we'll put cones up. So when they exit that wash, they won't have a choice. We'll send them to the south with our cones. So if we find that there are any issues there, that's typically how we would handle that.
Bob, can I add just a little bit to Commissioner Nordike's question?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. You see the 38-foot dimension there. What's missing, and I apologize for this, there should be an additional 18 feet. So the car at that vacuum is pulled all the way into the parking space. So the 38 feet is clear. The cars are not occupying any of that 38 feet. Does that help explain?
Yeah.
So it's 38 plus 18.
All right, so it's a total of 56 feet.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add, or did anyone else put their hand up, Cassie, to add?
Nicole Howell has her hand up.
All right, let's go ahead and see what Nicole has to add to the conversation. I had a sneaky suspicion that this one would take more time tonight.
Ms. Howell?
Hi, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Great. Thanks for having me tonight. I wanted to reiterate what Bob was saying about the exit and those vacuums there, that if it does end up getting to the point where we need to put out cones, we have done that to help direct the traffic to eliminate any congestion there. I did also want to talk about the processing going into the wash. We can fit 31 cars in the stack from the entrance into the wash all the way back to the exit island right there. So we can stack a decent amount of people to get into the car wash, and then we can process 208 cars in an hour. These are made to process cars quickly and efficiently and get a clean, dry, shiny car for you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Howell. Anyone else have any other questions? I'm not hearing anything. Any discussion? Any discussion at this time? No? Okay. Trying to think here if I have anything to add. Well, I'm hoping we've given their staff enough feedback here for them to make their next pitch. Does anybody, and I did offer this earlier, so I'll bring it up now. Does anybody in the public have a comment that they would like to make? It's always dangerous to do that, but you could raise your hand. And,
There are no raised hands.
good. Okay. I'll give one last chance for any of the planning commission members to chime in here. Otherwise, Brian, I think we did this one. I think we gave him some good feedback, I hope. All right. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on to Article 9.
Scott?
Yes.
I guess just real quick, since that coffee shop should be a big part of whether it's in or not, and I heard comments kind of both ways on it. I don't know if there's any clarification that the planning commission wants to give on whether that should or should not be included on their next round of revisions when they bring it back for site plan approval. Well,
You know, I'm going to let everybody else comment first, and then I'll give my comments. Former member Jack Lewis told me that was the right thing to do, so I'll let you guys go first.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Member Johnson.
I thought I heard Brian say that the zoning ordinance does not allow that. So if that's the case and the applicant wants to continue to pursue it, would the appropriate course of action be for them to get a variance from the zoning board? I mean, how does that work, Brian? Because if it comes back to us as a planning commission, do we have a say as to whether that can be approved or not?
Since it's a PUD, it's a little unique. If it was a normal straight site plan, it would definitely have to be a variance. I think because it's a PUD, it could be included in that approval. I might double check that with Steve when I can. But that's kind of my understanding is with the PUD allows for more flexibility. So it'd be included in, but yeah, you're correct in that our zoning ordinance states pretty specifically that it can only be one principal building or use on the site. So that's why I want to make sure that that was addressed.
Well, I would just ask then that you bring that information back the next time that the applicant comes back, or if they're not ready to come back at our next meeting, bring us some information so we know how to proceed in that way.
Sure.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to add? Yes, Member Nordhook.
My concern is the congestion there with the vacuums in the coffee shop. It would seem to me that one of the two have got to go. So I'm not sure how they want to proceed with that, but too much congestion, too tight for me. So
right.
I would like to see an adjustment there.
Okay. You know, I'm going to kind of, I'll go ahead, Member Maxley.
I concur with that opinion. I just think it's too dense.
Okay.
And I guess I'll give one more staff comment here. Is that something we're always aware of is providing precedent. And so we expect any new development to meet our current standards. So if we're allowing it here, you know, the next developer that comes that asks for 2 buildings on 1 parcel, and that points back to this one, that's just something that we always want to be aware of then.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
just real quick, is there any way that Brian can do some research on the issues that the applicant brought forth of his research that he did on some existing PUDs that have multiple use buildings on them? And again, you're talking about precedents. What's happened in the past that may have precipitated those PUDs? If you could find that, again, just some more information, so we've got a full picture.
I think it'd be great if you reached out to the applicant and worked with them on that. And then I agree, Member Johnson. I also was going to say that I wouldn't limit it to just number of buildings in the PUD, but maybe to parcel size, because if they split it into 2 separate parcels and kind of went along the lines of what I think Trustee Nordhook was getting at with you know, maybe the vacuums disappear, you know, maybe you could make something work there. And keep the coffee shop, or I guess the other option is to keep the vacuums and get rid of the coffee shop and leave it as one. But I think there's a balancing act here, and maybe if you spent some time and dove into a little history with them, we could sort some of that out.
Yeah, I can provide a memo on that.
Anybody else have any comments to add?
I'm of the mind, it's Nordike, that yeah, under normal circumstances, I would say that we need to follow the zoning pretty closely, but given that it was 2 parcels combined to 1, and given that the uses are in line with what's happening in that geographic area, I'm inclined to go for having a coffee drive-through. It's not a eat-in establishment, and the car wash. I do think that the applicant should hear that, you know, you have multiple planning commissioners telling you that it is perceived to be too dense. So either make a correction to that, or be really well prepared to explain why it's not, and give us some studies and information to back that up.
Thank you, Member Nordike. And Brian, if I'm not mistaken, is the Pizza Hut building, is a standalone restaurant there already part of a PUD right now?
Yes, that's the lot that's in this current PUD, and then the motel is its own parcel.
And that lot as itself is under the 3 acres right now as it sits in a PUD, correct?
It is, yep. Those parcels up there are smaller, but
right.
Yeah.
So
adding this brings it only to a total of just a little over 2 acres. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
So it's really non-conforming as it sits today. Combining them or making them into 2 separate parcels that are larger because they get rid of the right of way. Hopefully they're able to pull, if they're able to pull that off. We're actually getting closer to where the end goal would be. But as it sits, it's never going to be able to meet the 3 acre minimum.
Correct. Yeah. And I think part of that too, I talked to Steve briefly about it, but they looked at the full size of the PUD and how many buildings on it could hold. And I think there's kind of some calculations on the building density and in terms of that. And I don't know the full background on that, but yep, you're right. Right now it's non-conforming. This would bring it closer to, it'd still be under the 3 acres.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone else before we move on? All right. I think there's some more work to be done on that one. We will move along to Article 9, which is case 21-3632, Gold Dental Properties at 3636 Craft Avenue.
So this is actually the same process. They're applying for a PUD amendment as well. And so they're requesting the same basic plan review right now. This would be amending the existing PUD to allow for a dental office in the existing building on the property. The lot is located on the southeast corner of Craft and 36th Street. The applicant's requesting that PUD 49 be amended to include this new use. PUD 49 currently includes an existing, what was a single family home there that's been being used as an office by Pension Concepts. So the applicant's proposing to use the existing building to house the dental office, and they're proposing some changes to the parking lot area as well. The current PUD ordinance language is very specific in allowing, it states that specifically that the building will be used by Pension Concepts as the permitted use. So that language would need to be amended in order to allow for any other use, and this use being a dental office there. In the parking lot, there is some additional impervious surface that's being proposed. So the applicant will need to provide an existing and a proposed site plan that indicates the net increase in impervious surface so that our engineer can review that for stormwater compliance. And then we'll need that review to take place before we schedule the public hearing and the preliminary plan review. The proposed site plan then should also include setback information for that proposed sign that they show there in the corner. That should show from both the property line and the edge of the streets. And then should also show aisle and width information for the driveway and the parking lot. And then the applicant should confirm if there are any changes being proposed to the curb cuts. And it's probably a good idea to see if the road commission has any comments on that as well. The applicant would need to propose or need to submit a landscaping plan, and then also a photometric site plan if any new exterior lighting is being proposed. The applicants indicated that they will be connecting to sewer and water, so they should submit some Kent County Health Department approvals there for any septic tank removal or abandonment. So then once again, I provide a few other recommendations for information that the applicant should submit before we proceed to a public hearing. And so then once again, this is the introduction phase of the project, so it's a good time for any questions of the applicant. And then the next phase would be scheduling that public hearing for the preliminary development plan review once the applicant provides the documents and information that's mentioned in the staff report.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions of staff at this time? All right. Would the applicant wish to add anything at this time?
The applicant is in attendance. There are no raised hands.
All right, excellent. Anybody have any other questions or comments on this one? This one looked a little bit more straightforward to me. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this, as I've been trying to do through Zoom anyways, is gauge you know, when we're in the room, the public's in front of you. You can tell if there's a hot topic because the room's either full or empty. But when I'm on Zoom, I don't really know. So if somebody wants to throw a hand up, I'm willing to listen.
The applicant just put his hand up.
Oh, well, we'll listen to him then.
All right. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Good. I did submit a little different site plan drawing that an architect put together that did include a service drive and a trash kind of disposal area on the south side of the building.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys want to have any discussion on that now versus waiting to the other application.
Where is?
So where it says concrete slab down in that area,
yes,
it would basically be a straight kind of access drive off of the
from the west.
Yeah.
Basically going straight.
Correct. Going, yes.
Okay. Would those three? It looks like you've got 3 trees there in the landscape. Are those going to leave for that, or are they kind of going to fit between the trees and the existing concrete slab?
With that, there's some kind of dead shrub landscaping there that would cut back, or we'll have the size of the, we'll have it on the drawings with that. I guess this point as far as the scope and making sure that,
Mhm.
Dimensions would work.
Well, one of my questions was gonna be dumpster enclosure, so this is kind of fulfilling that one, I guess. So. Does any members of the planning commission have any comments or questions to ask regarding this new information being put forth? Okay, not hearing any. Did you have anything else you wish to add, Mr. Gold?
Oh, it sounds like we've got some work to do to get everything kind of finalized, but we'll work with Brian to get all that together.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of red flags as of right now, so I think Brian's your best option. Any other?
I guess there's one last thing, kind of with it being kind of the closing for the property being contingent on dental use. Is there any objection from the board in general with it being used for a dental office? I guess that you guys could have that discussion.
Brian, would it be wrong for us to I don't know how to word this, but is it wrong for us to make a motion that we would that we have no objections with dental use at this site in a future PUD amendment? Or is it premature to make that
It might be
that way they can proceed with their closing, I guess?
Yeah, I see what they're asking. It might be a little premature, I would say, to be making a formal motion, but as long as there's no kind of general discontent from the planning commission and from a staff perspective, I don't see an issue with a dental office there at least.
Okay. I don't see an issue with a dental office being there either. I think the use would be fine there, but do any members of planning commission have any thoughts or concerns on this? I guess are quiet tonight. At times I'm wondering if my volume's working.
Mr. Chair, I would just say, based on the lack of comments, I think there's general support and okay for the idea of a dental office, in my opinion. I just speak for
Thank you,
myself.
member.
I don't see any issues.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't like talking to myself all night, so this is helpful.
Okay, agreed.
Thank you, Member Norduck. All right. Okay. Anyone else chime in? Otherwise, I think we've given them what they're looking for. At least I hope we have for now. And with that, I would move on to Article 10 to discuss and consider virtual or in-person hybrid meetings. I'm going to leave it at that for right now. Brian, would you care to speak to this? I'm assuming you're commenting on it.
Yeah, you see I've got a brief memo there at the way back of your packet for this. So the township now has the ability to hold in-person hybrid meetings at the Wisner Center. So you might have seen that the township board held the first one of those, I believe it was last week. So the hybrid consists of having the ability for board and staff applicants to meet in person, but also gives the capability to continue Zoom virtual meetings for those who are unable to attend in person. And then also Kent County did extend an emergency order to allow municipalities the ability to continue a virtual meeting until June 30. So that is still an option as well. So we're looking for a little direction on which meeting platform the Planning Commission is interested in moving in. Just a couple notes on the hybrid meetings, I guess. Those do get a little more complicated because we have the in-person, but still the virtual as well. So we need to have most likely an additional staff person at the meeting to run the virtual component of the meeting. Similar to what Stephanie Fast, our assistant township manager, did at the township board meeting, if you're watching that. So they'd be monitoring for virtual public comments as well as letting applicants speak if they're virtual. And then we do still have to find 2 more places to put planning commission members since we're a 9-member board and the township board is a 7-member. So you might have seen that they already had 2 people at the usual staff desk. So we'd have to find 2 additional seats as well. So we do actually have we still have a few things to figure out for that. We do have a staff meeting scheduled later this week, I think, to discuss that as well. Just looking for a little direction from the planning commission on how you might want to move forward with that.
I thought we covered this, did we not, Scott?
We talked about this in January about continuing to be virtual through I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was through March.
Yeah.
And then the at least the plea I made to actually I talked to Manager Swayze about it and to Steve was that wanted to use that time to come up with a hybrid plan and policy, if you will, moving forward. But there hadn't been really any conversation, at least engaging with me or any of us since. And obviously Brian's just outlined, I think, some new hurdles maybe that are in the plans. But yes, I had fully intended this to be a in-person meeting. And actually, Brian knows I called him as soon as the agenda came out because I was like, hey, wait a minute. I think there's a mistake here. We're supposed to be in person. So yes, the short answer, Member Nordyke, is yes. But I think that there's more questions now that I'm hearing the full report that maybe we need to work on helping answer. So now Cassie currently runs these meetings kind of for us in the background. Are you saying we need another person on top of her duties if we went to a hybrid format?
It would be Cassie or some staff member, but in the past they didn't attend in-person meetings, but they would have to, it seems like, be attending in person then. I mean, that would include, depending on what they decide, zoning board or DDA or brownfield. So there's just a lot of additional meetings there, but just, a few other,
So they can't do that. They can't do that task remotely is what you're saying.
That was my understanding. I'd asked Stephanie that because she was doing that with the township board, and it sounded like whoever that is would have to be in person at the meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Member Johnson.
Can I ask Brian, you talked about the fact that I assume due to spacing requirements, the planning commission would not be able to sit at the table as in past meetings when we met in person. Are we also going to be required to wear masks during the entire meeting, along with anyone that shows up in attendance?
I'm not 100% sure. So Timmy, do you have a better answer for that?
I do. The governor does allow you to not wear a mask when you are speaking publicly. So you don't have to have the mask on when you actually speak. We just did the public meeting like real Americans in the flesh, and it worked just fine. We put one extra table out with two members at that. The planning commission does have two more members, so we would need one extra table. We did rig the Wisner Center so that we could do the hybrid meetings. So all the technology's there. We only had, I think, 5 or 6 people show up for our meeting. The governor before had a limit of 25 people, but that has been removed. It is now unlimited. So they want to get back to being, as I call it, Americans. Let's get back to work.
Thank you for those comments, Member Nordhook. That's helpful. I did watch the meeting and it seemed to work fine online.
Yeah,
I didn't see any issues as somebody watching it through Zoom, which is handy because, as all of you know, nobody really watched the planning commission meetings at a lot of them prior to the pandemic. So maybe now they'll have more interest moving forward. But we've had a lot of meetings where nobody came.
Member Nordhook, I believe
Yes.
there's also plexiglass up.
Yeah.
Am I
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yep. So there's dividers between the planning commission members of township board members as they sit in the room. Is it possible? Are we set up that if a planning commission member chose to continue to come in remotely from home, but the rest of the planning commission was going to be in person, or maybe not just one, but say 2 or 3 of them wanted to come in remotely through Zoom? Yeah, does that get sticky, or are we confident to try that?
the order I read from the state that the board members, from the township board members, it was required they be in person unless they had a medical excuse. I'm not sure how
Okay.
it applies to the planning board, but
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Stephanie as well and see if she has any other information that's different for the plan commission or those same rules apply.
So, what I'm hearing is that we have to make a choice here if we want to be in person or virtual, that for at least the next meeting and obviously moving forward. Does anybody else have any comments or thoughts they want to throw into the conversation here?
Just had one other question, Brian.
Yes, member.
Am I understanding that after June, we would be in person regardless? So this extension only allows us basically May and June to be discussing whether we are remote or not?
It sounds like it, unless I guess that emergency order got extended further, but yeah, as of now, it sounds like it would only go through June.
Okay.
And if I could, I'd like to add that when we had this conversation in January, the part of the reason we only said we'd go virtual through March was because that was when the current order ended. Obviously, it's been extended again now till June. So I mean, these orders they've been getting extended, which sometimes can be considered unfortunate. So and sometimes not. So but I just thought I'd throw that in there. But yes, I remember wrapping this. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would say I think these have run very efficiently, and I'm in favor of going back as soon as we can. But if we're only talking about a couple months, if it means we're trying to negotiate if people can be online and in person, I would rather wait until we can all be in place in the same location, if that makes sense.
Does anybody else have anything to add? Otherwise, I might just ask a question. Is there any, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot here, but do any of you have a strong compelled reason to not be in person? I mean, I'm not hearing a lot of comments. Does anybody have I don't want to do it. I mean, that's fine if you don't. I'm wondering if anybody has any objection or concerns, because I'm not hearing a lot. I'm thinking that going to the hybrid format like the township board is perhaps a okay thing to pursue once staff is comfortable with it. I guess that's kind of my inclination, but
I just don't like wearing masks. That's my problem. I get the idea of doing it, and I don't have a problem doing so where required. I'm not going to be out there and I'm not a person that's going to go say I'm not going to wear a mask. I will wear a mask, but I just don't like it. Hurts my ears with the glasses and all that. So I'd rather be in a situation where I don't have to wear a mask, and I'd be happy. But if that's the choice that we make and we have to wear a mask, I can do that as well. I just don't like it.
I have a question.
Yes, Member
Nordhook. CDC also said that if everybody's vaccinated, we don't need masks. So I'm vaccinated.
Yeah, so am I.
So am I.
I will be.
I have surgery on Thursday, so I can't get my vaccination yet. So at least that's what I've been recommended. So I have not been vaccinated yet, but I am not concerned to be in an environment with vaccinated people who are maskless.
Yeah. Well, I'm in favor of getting back to doing this in person.
I would be too.
Me too.
Yep.
Member Johnson, perhaps the answer here is that you should just talk a whole lot more during the meeting. Then you wouldn't need the mask as often.
We'll put you in your own corner.
All right. I think you got a consensus, Brian. Is that what you're looking for?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So I think we'll leave this one up to staff to work towards a goal of us being in person as soon as they feel that they can safely make that happen. It's kind of, I think, how we're going to leave that. And with that, I think we'll move on to Article 11, any other business. Does anyone have any other business to bring up?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, Member Deering.
Is there is there any kind of update on the Chick-fil-A that's supposed to be going in next door to Meyer?
That's a great question.
I'm trying to remember, because I think Sandra Corhorn, our Economic Development Director, reached out to them, and if I recall correctly, I don't think they had a timeline yet, but they're still planning on coming in, was I believe the last I heard on that.
Okay. And then the other question I had was the path that's supposed to be going in across 96 on Burton. So I walk that way often, and I see that they have marked out where the sidewalk is supposed to be going, but I wondered if there's an update on that as well. Any kind of timeline?
Sure. I haven't heard about anything too much recently, but I believe they're still into engineering and working that out, and it's probably when those flags got marked, but I believe, I don't recall if it was 2021 that they were hoping to. I think it was 2022 when they were hoping to kind of get that going and get that in, but I can double check with Steve on that too and get a better answer for you.
Okay. And do you know, to cross over the highway, is that going to be like kind of an addition to the existing bridge that's there, like something on the outside of it, or do you know how that's supposed to look or be built?
The last I saw, it was a separate pedestrian bridge, actually, so it's not attached to the first one, so it's having to work closely with MDOT and the road commission on that, but I think it will be its own pedestrian bridge, at least from the last update that I had seen on it.
Okay. As someone who would use that, I'm excited for that to come in.
I might comment on that. Yeah, Steve has mentioned that they're moving ahead fairly fast on that. You know, it would be a separate bridge, pedestrian bridge. There's one very similar to what I think they're talking about down by Holland on 196, south side of Holland. And it's really beautiful, and it's a separate bridge for pedestrians. And it seems quite effective.
Thank you.
I do have one question for Brian. Any update on that property on Cascade Road north of Burton?
I haven't heard, but I can check with Stephanie Fast, our Assistant Township Manager, on that and let you know.
I would appreciate it. I just, every time I go by it, I kind of grimace because they're parking all kinds of construction machinery on a residential lot.
Sure.
Plus a whole bunch of cars. And the whole backyard has a lot of construction equipment. It just seems totally inappropriate.
I can check with Stephanie and see where we're at with that.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Moxley. Anyone else have any other business? Well, great, then I'll bring some up. I noticed that the Township Board approved the Road Commission 5-year plan in their last meeting, or at least reviewed it. And in the past, I know a couple times that I've been on the Planning Commission, we have seen the 5-year plan as Planning Commission, but I noticed that it's not on the agenda tonight. I was wondering if, obviously I saw it, and I know Trustee Nordhook's seen it, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be beneficial for the rest of the planning commissioners to have an opportunity to see it. And if it's not in the cards, then I'd make my comments about my concerns of the plan now. But if it's going to come up in the agenda in the future, I'll hold it for later. But I purposely didn't speak at the Township Board meeting because I thought I would see it on our agenda. So there's that.
Isn't that part of the CIP, Chad?
I'm sorry, hang on. We've got 2 people talking, so or maybe 3. I'm gonna let Timmy go first since he's on the top row, and then I'll jump to the next row.
The pedestrian bridge over the highway was part of the capital improvement plan for the county. It was included.
Yes, it was. There are some of those questions were answered there. Member Johnson, what did you have to add?
I was just going to say, I thought we saw the 5-year road commission plan as part of the CIP that came to us earlier this year?
I don't believe we did. I think we saw the townships, the townships, the part the township was paying for, but I don't know that we saw the actual road commission's budgeted projects.
Okay.
I could be mistaken on that, but
I
Brian, do
believe
you have
that
anything
was
to add there?
just, I don't think it was included on there. I think that was just the township's capital improvement plan. But if we've seen it in the past, wasn't aware of having it on the agenda. That's probably something that Steve would have seen if he had been in, but if we've had it in the past, I don't see why we couldn't have it on a future agenda.
Okay. I just think it'd be nice for all of us to be on the same page. I think it would have answered Member Deering's question. And I think it's beneficial for us to know that, especially when people in the community ask us questions and things. It's nice to have those answers. So.
Sure.
Scott, I thought we would actually not only review it, but approve it before it went to, am I thinking of something else? I thought that.
Well, it's the road commission's plan, Member Nordic. So I don't know that we have any pull on that.
I thought there was an action or a recommendation or some variation of that.
I remember seeing it in the past. I don't know that, in fact, I think a few years ago it was pretty blank, if I remember. And that was the concern. So yeah, but anyhow, let's talk about it, Brian. If you could bring that to us at a future meeting, I think that would be great.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And just let us see it, and then we can chime in with our comments. Nobody's probably paying attention anyway, but at least we can all talk about it. So, and any other business? Anyone have any other business?
I do have the plan pulled up. Is there a specific question you want me to ask or look for? There's a part about the motorized trail over 96 on Burton. It just says they're going to extend existing non-motorized trail from High Ridge Lane west to Patterson Avenue. That's about the only thing I see on that.
Yeah, my concern is actually, or my question is actually regarding Cascade Road, which I think is slated for 2022 to be repaved from 36th Street to Whitneyville and widened to an all-season standard, if I'm not mistaken. And my concern is that in about, and I could be wrong on the date here, but I'm going to say 2014, 2015, they did an overlay project on Cascade Road from Snow to Buttrick. And so what that means is that the section from Whitneyville Road to Buttrick was last repaved in, I want to say 2000 to 2001. And when you drive through it in a nice car, it rides okay. When you go over it in a new pickup truck, it's like driving over speed bumps at 50 miles an hour. So that was my concern, is that I feel that the plan lacks in the next 5 years to address that small stretch, because the last time they redid that segment, they stopped short of Whitneyville. When I asked the question then, I was told that the segment from 36th Street to Whitneyville would include the stretch to Buttrick, but now somehow that's being left out. So that was my comment. So anyway. Anyone else have any other business to add? I hear none, so I guess we'll move on to Article 12, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Member Johnson moves we adjourn.
Thank you, Member Johnson.
Cats with support.
Thank you, Member Katzma. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No one's ever opposed. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a great evening. And we'll see you at our next meeting, hopefully.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.